The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council headquarters pierced the pink-tinged clouds of Centauri Prime, their surfaces refracting the light of 3 suns into prismatic displays. Dr. Sarah Chen adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform, a sleek blend of Earth fashion and space-age materials, as she waited in the preparation chamber. Beside her, Magnus lounged with characteristic feline indifference to the historical significance of the moment. "Ready, big guy?" Sarah reached down to scratch behind his ears, earning a rumbling purr that made the alien attendants take several steps back. At 180 pounds of rippling muscle and striped fur, Magnus was an impressive sight even by Earth standards. Here, among species that had evolved far from any similar predators, he was absolutely terrifying. The massive doors to the council chamber slid open with a whisper of advanced engineering. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward, Magnus padding silently at her side. The chamber itself was a testament to the architectural achievements of 1,000 worlds, a vast amphitheater whose walls seemed to be made of living crystal, with floating platforms holding representatives from every recognized space-faring species. The initial murmur of diplomatic greetings died in a wave of sudden silence. Sarah could see the exact moment each species recognized what walked beside her. The arthropoid Zenthak representatives clicked their mandibles in alarm. The crystalline lumini dimmed their bioluminescent displays. The gaseous cloudborne contracted into dense, defensive spheres. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, Sarah's voice carried clearly through the chamber, enhanced by subtle acoustics. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen, representing Earth and the Human Diplomatic Corps." She maintained her professional demeanor despite the growing tension in the room. Magnus, sensing the atmosphere, sat down beside her with perfect poise. A flash of movement caught her eye as one of the Zenthak representatives raised all 4 arms in warning. "Security breach. That's a Class 1 predator. How did it get through our defenses?" "Magnus is my companion," Sarah explained calmly, resting one hand on the tiger's massive head. "He's a Siberian tiger, a species from Earth that humans have worked with for centuries." The Council's central AI translated her words into 50 different languages, but the resulting chaos suggested some concepts simply didn't translate. The Lumini representative's crystalline form vibrated in what their species considered extreme agitation. Scans indicate 89% genetic similarity to nexophilids, the AI announced, its neutral tone somehow making the statement more dramatic. "Caution is advised." Sarah hadn't expected this particular complication. She knew about the nexophilids, of course. They were part of her diplomatic briefing. But the genetic similarity was a surprise that could either derail her mission or provide an unexpected opportunity. Magnus chose that moment to yawn, displaying an impressive array of teeth that could crush bones. Several council members visibly flinched. Sarah, however, simply reached into her pocket and pulled out Magnus's favorite toy, a red laser pointer. The mighty tiger's eyes immediately locked onto the small red dot as it appeared on the chamber floor. "Perhaps," Sarah suggested diplomatically, watching Magnus track the laser with the intense focus only cats could manage, "we could start by discussing humanity's long history of working with predator species." Senior council member Zixthirith's crystalline form shimmered with barely contained agitation as they activated the chamber's holographic systems. The air above the central platform filled with starlit scenes that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. Massive shapes moved through the darkness of space, their silhouettes unmistakably feline but scaled up to impossible proportions. "These are the nexophilids." Zixthirith's translated voice resonated through the chamber. "For 3,000 years, they have been the apex predators of known space. Your Magnus shares their genetic structure." The footage shifted to show a massive nexophelid ship, if it could be called that, a biological vessel nearly a kilometer long, its hull covered in the same striped patterns that adorned Magnus's fur. The vessel moved with a grace that seemed impossible for its size, stalking a merchant freighter through an asteroid field. "They hunt in packs," Another council member added, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with remembered fear. They possess intelligence that rivals our own, yet have never shown interest in diplomacy or trade. They take what they want, kill for sport, and vanish into the dark spaces between stars. Magnus watched the holographic display with typical feline interest, his tail swishing slowly. Sarah noticed several council members tracking that tail movement with their various sensory organs, clearly expecting violence at any moment. If I may, Sarah stepped forward, pulling up her own data on her tablet. This behavior sounds remarkably similar to how humans once viewed Earth's big cats. Before we understood them, we also thought they killed for sport. She transmitted her data to the holographic system, where it appeared alongside the nexophelid footage. We learned that every behavior has a purpose. What appears to be sport is often practice, teaching, or territory marking. The council chamber erupted in overlapping translations as Sarah brought up footage from Earth's nature preserves. Images of tigers playing with enrichment toys, participating in veterinary checkups, and even accepting treats from handlers filled the air alongside the nexophelid records. Impossible. The Zenthak representative clicked. The genetic scans are conclusive. Your Earth predator is of their kind. How are you not consumed? Sarah scratched Magnus behind the ears, earning another rumbling purr. Humanity has a long history of working with predators. We learn to read their body language, understand their needs, and earn their trust. Magnus here helps people recover from trauma. He's what we call a therapy animal. The concept of therapy animal caused such confusion that the universal translators briefly overloaded, producing a burst of static. Sarah took advantage of the moment to demonstrate, having Magnus perform a series of trained behaviors that showcased both his intelligence and his gentle nature. Most remarkably, the council's central AI interjected, scans indicate the human's stress levels actually decrease when in physical contact with the predator. The relationship appears to be symbiotic. Sarah smiled, watching the council try to process this information. Perhaps understanding the nexophilids isn't as impossible as you think. Sometimes, what we fear most just needs to be understood. Sarah's fingers danced across her tablet's surface, transforming the council chamber into a journey through time. The crystalline walls reflected holographic scenes from Earth's history, creating an immersive display that surrounded the assembled representatives. "This is where our story begins," she said, as images of ancient cave paintings materialized around them. Over 40,000 years ago, humans were not the strongest, fastest, or most fearsome species on Earth. We were prey as often as we were predators. But we had something unique, the ability to observe, understand, and connect. The scenes shifted to show early humans running alongside wolves. Several council members recoiled, but Sarah continued undeterred. These were our first partners, wolves that would eventually become what we call dogs. Through understanding and cooperation, we turned potential predators into allies. Magnus stretched lazily beneath the holographic displays, seemingly uninterested in his evolutionary cousins racing across the walls. The Lumini representative's crystalline surface rippled with confusion patterns. But these creatures, their translated voice chimed. They are small, barely Class 3 predators. The genetic markers in your companion indicate Class 1 apex predator status, the same as nexophilids. Sarah nodded, transitioning the display to scenes from India's ancient temples. Humanity didn't stop with wolves. In every corner of our world, we learned to work with increasingly powerful predators. Here, she highlighted a carved tiger figure. Ancient cultures didn't just fear big cats. They revered them, studied them, and eventually learned to coexist with them. The historical journey continued through time, showing big cat sanctuaries, conservation projects, and rehabilitation centers. The council watched in stunned silence as humans bottle-fed tiger cubs, performed medical examinations on adult lions, and engaged in enrichment activities with panthers. Your species deliberately breeds these predators. The Zenthak representative's mandibles clicked rapidly. even after achieving space flight capabilities. "We don't just breed them," Sarah responded, bringing up footage from modern conservation centers. "We fight to preserve them." When humanity realized our development was pushing these species toward extinction, we created protected spaces where they could thrive. We learned that every predator, no matter how fearsome, plays a crucial role in maintaining ecological balance. Magnus chose this moment to roll onto his back, paws in the air, clearly requesting a belly rub. Sarah obliged, causing several council members to emit their species' equivalent of gasps. The truly remarkable aspect, the council's AI noted, is the physiological response in both organisms. The predator's cortisol levels decrease during physical contact, while the human's oxytocin levels increase. This suggests a mutually beneficial emotional bond. "That's precisely it," Sarah said, standing back up as Magnus rolled over. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our intelligence. It's our capacity to form connections with species that everyone else considers impossible to approach. We don't see Magnus, or any predator, as just a collection of danger signals and threat assessments. We see them as individuals worthy of understanding and respect." The council chamber's atmosphere shifted dramatically as emergency alerts flashed across its crystalline walls. Holographic displays showed a massive shape moving through the darkness of space, its biological hull rippling with familiar striped patterns. Sarah felt Magnus tense beside her, his ears perking forward at the sudden change in the room's energy. "Nexophelid raiding party detected near the Centauri colonies," the council's AI announced, its neutral tone somehow making the news more ominous. "Initial scan suggests 3 adult specimens. Projected casualties if they reach the mining outposts. 4,000 colonists." The chamber erupted into chaos. The Zenthak representatives began rapid-fire evacuation protocols, while the Lumini delegates' crystalline forms pulsed with emergency patterns. Sarah watched the tactical displays, noting how the Nexophelid ships moved with the same fluid grace as Earth's big cats stalking prey. "We have 6 hours before they reach the colonies," the security chief, a towering meridian with iridescent scales, announced. "Standard evacuation procedures require at least 8. We need solutions, not protocols." Sarah stepped forward, her hand resting steadily on Magnus's head. "I have a proposal, but you're not going to like it." The chamber fell silent, all attention focusing on the human and her predator companion. "Let me attempt contact." "Impossible." The security chief's scales flickered with alarm. "The Nexophilids have never responded to communication attempts. They view all other species as prey. Just like everyone here views Magnus as nothing but a threat." Sarah countered, scratching behind the tiger's ears. "Look at his body language now. He's alert but not aggressive. He's responding to the room's tension, but he's choosing to stay calm because he trusts me." She quickly pulled up data from her tablet, projecting footage of Earth's big cat researchers working with wild tigers. "We've developed techniques over centuries for safely approaching predators. Reading body language, establishing boundaries, showing respect. These aren't just Earth concepts. They're universal predator behaviors." The Council's central AI processed this information. Historical records show 100% failure rate in Nexophelid diplomatic contacts. However, no attempts have been made using human methodologies. "Because they're suicidal," the security chief interjected. "You're suggesting walking into a pride of spacefaring apex predators with nothing but theories based on a domesticated variant." Magnus rumbled softly, picking up on Sarah's increasing determination. She straightened her diplomatic uniform and faced the council. "Magnus isn't domesticated. He's a wild animal who chooses to work with us. Every expert said tigers couldn't be therapy animals either, but here we are. Sometimes the impossible just needs a new perspective." The tactical display showed the Nexophelid ships moving closer, their trajectory unwavering. Sarah watched their graceful movements, noting patterns she'd seen 1,000 times in Earth's big cats. "We have 6 hours to try something new, or we lose 4,000 lives. What's more impossible? attempting communication, or evacuating 8 hours of people in 6 hours of time. The observation dome's transparent panels offered an unobstructed view of deep space, making Sarah feel simultaneously exposed and privileged. Magnus sat alertly by her side as the massive shapes of the Nexophelid ships grew larger against the starfield. The Council's emergency committee watched from a heavily shielded command center several decks below, their various species unified in their certainty that they were about to witness a human's last moments. Primary ship is now within visual range, the AI announced. Biological readings indicate 3 adult Nexophilids, approximately 12 meters in length excluding their ship forms. Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself just as she did before approaching any new big cat. Magnus's presence was reassuring. His calm demeanor suggested the Nexophilids hadn't released any aggressive pheromones yet. The closest ship, its biological hull rippling with iridescent stripes, adjusted its course directly toward the observation dome. Beginning approach protocols, Sarah spoke calmly into her comm unit. She positioned herself slightly sideways, a stance that any Earth feline would read as non-threatening. Magnus mirrored her posture instinctively. Notice their ship's movement patterns. They're not attacking. They're investigating. The lead Nexophelid ship came to a stop roughly 100 meters from the dome. Its hull shifted, revealing what could only be described as a face. Features that perfectly split the difference between Earth's big cats and something evolved for space. Eyes larger than shuttlecraft glowed with bioluminescent intelligence, focusing intently on the small figures in the dome. Sarah maintained her angle, letting her gaze drift slightly to the side rather than meeting those massive eyes directly. A direct stare would be a challenge to Earth's big cats. She wagered the same held true here. Beside her, Magnus sat regally, his own body language broadcasting calm confidence. The Nexophilid's head tilted slightly, the universal felid sign of curiosity. Sarah slowly lifted her hand, palm out. Fingers relaxed. "Easy now," she whispered, though the creature couldn't possibly hear her through space. Just like meeting any new friend. The massive creature moved closer, its movement so smooth it barely disturbed the stars visible behind it. Sarah felt her heart racing, but kept her breathing steady. Everything in her experience told her this was going well, even as every survival instinct screamed about the predator larger than a small starship now barely 50 meters away. Magnus chose that moment to perform a slow blink, the ultimate feline sign of trust and comfort. To the astonishment of everyone watching, the Nexophilid's massive eyes closed and opened in the same deliberate pattern. Remarkable. The AI's voice was barely a whisper in Sarah's earpiece. They're displaying mirroring behavior. This is the first recorded peaceful interaction with a Nexophelid in Council history. Sarah allowed herself a small smile, still maintaining her non-threatening posture. "They're not monsters," she said softly. "They're just very, very big cats who've never met anyone who spoke their language before." In the days following first contact, Sarah spent hours in the observation dome, documenting every interaction with the Nexophelid trio. Magnus remained her constant companion, his behavior providing invaluable insights into their spaceborne cousins. The Council's scientific committee watched in amazement as she compiled her findings, mapping previously misunderstood aggressive behaviors into recognizable patterns. "Look at this footage." Sarah highlighted a holographic display showing the Nexophilid's movement through various star systems. "We've been interpreting their paths as random attack routes, but they're not random at all." She overlaid historical data onto the star chart, revealing a striking pattern. These are territorial patrols. They're following the same routes their ancestors used for thousands of years. The Lumini representative's crystalline form shifted in recognition. "Those are the old trading routes before we established the modern hyperspace corridors." "Exactly." Sarah nodded, scratching Magnus behind the ears as she continued. "Just like Earth's tigers, they're territorial creatures following ancestral paths. The attacks increased when we started building colonies along their traditional routes, but not because they're mindlessly aggressive. She brought up new footage from her recent observations. The lead nexophelid, whom she'd started calling Atlas, was demonstrating hunting behavior near an asteroid field. Its massive form moved with incredible precision, herding space-dwelling creatures larger than Earth whales. They're not attacking colonies for sport or random violence, Sarah explained. Their natural prey species have been driven away by our expansion. The raids are resource gathering, not random aggression. She highlighted several instances where nexophilids had bypassed vulnerable colonies entirely. They're following specific patterns, just like Earth's big cats. They're not evil or malicious. They're hungry and protecting their territory. Magnus watched the footage intently, his tail swishing in recognition of familiar hunting patterns scaled up to cosmic proportions. The council members, who had initially insisted on heavy security, now leaned forward in fascination. Notice their social structure, Sarah continued, showing new observations. They hunt in small family groups, maintain consistent territories, and show complex social behaviors. Atlas here has been displaying the same signs of curiosity that we see in Earth's big cats when presented with enrichment activities. The security chief's scales flickered thoughtfully. You're suggesting they could be reasoned with. I'm suggesting we've been handling this all wrong, Sarah replied. On Earth, when human expansion threatened big cat territories, we didn't succeed by fighting them. We succeeded by understanding their needs and creating protected spaces where both species could thrive. She projected a final set of images showing Atlas's group engaging in social behavior remarkably similar to Earth's big cats, grooming their ship forms biological hulls, engaging in play behavior with space debris, and maintaining complex family bonds. The nexophilids aren't our enemy, Sarah concluded, watching Atlas's massive form glide past the observation dome in what she now recognized as a friendly patrol pattern. They're highly intelligent creatures trying to survive in a galaxy that's rapidly changing around them. We don't need to fight them. We just need to learn to share space. Literally, the council chamber hummed with anticipation as Sarah presented her comprehensive proposal. Three-dimensional holograms filled the space, showing designs that merged Earth's wildlife conservation techniques with advanced space engineering. Magnus lounged nearby, occasionally batting at the holographic projections of space stations that floated past his head. The key is understanding their needs, Sarah explained, expanding a detailed model of a proposed nexophelid sanctuary. Just like Earth's big cats, they require three things: territory, prey, and enrichment. We can provide all three with these specialized habitats. The design showed massive space stations built into asteroid clusters, creating vast hunting grounds that mimic the nexophelid's natural territory. Artificial gravity wells and carefully managed ecosystems would support populations of their natural prey species, while the asteroid fields themselves provided perfect stalking grounds. But how do we prevent them from simply leaving these sanctuaries? The security chief's scales rippled with skepticism. They're space-faring predators, not captive animals. Sarah smiled, projecting new footage of Atlas's group interacting with prototype enrichment structures she'd deployed. The massive nexophilids were investigating giant space-adapted versions of cat toys, their behavior remarkably similar to Magnus exploring new enrichment items in his enclosure. They're not captives at all, she explained. These sanctuaries follow their natural patrol routes. We're not containing them. We're giving them exactly what they want. Watch this. She highlighted footage of a younger nexophelid discovering a massive scratching post made of specialized space-grade materials. The creature's obvious delight at finding something that could withstand its massive claws drew surprised murmurs from the council. The Lumini representative's crystalline form sparkled with interest. The materials cost alone for these sanctuaries would be astronomical. Less than the cost of colonial defenses and reconstruction after raids, Sarah countered, bringing up economic projections. Plus, look at these readings. She displayed biological data from the nexophilids they'd been working with. Their stress hormones are down 30% since we introduced the enrichment programs, Happy predators don't raid colonies. Magnus chose that moment to demonstrate the effectiveness of enrichment himself, pouncing playfully on a toy Sarah had brought. The council watched in amazement as the fearsome tiger rolled around like a kitten, completely absorbed in play. The program isn't just about containment, Sarah continued. It's about coexistence. These sanctuaries will include observation posts for scientific research, cultural exchange, and even tourism. Imagine seeing nexophilids in their natural habitat, understanding their behaviors, learning from them instead of fearing them. She brought up one final simulation showing a completed sanctuary teeming with life. Nexophilids moved gracefully through the asteroid fields, hunting, playing, and living in harmony with the gallery of observation posts discreetly positioned at safe distances. This is how we turned Earth's big cats from enemies into cherished neighbors, Sarah concluded, reaching down to ruffle Magnus's fur. Not through force or fear, but through understanding and respect. We can do the same here, just on a slightly larger scale. One standard galactic year later, Sarah stood in the observation dome of the first Nexophelid Conservation Zone, watching Atlas teaching his cubs how to navigate the carefully designed asteroid lanes. The massive creatures moved with fluid grace through the space between the stars, their bioluminescent markings creating trails of living light against the darkness. Magnus sat beside her, his tail swishing contentedly as he watched his giant cousins at play. Tourist shuttle approaching observation post Alpha, the station's AI announced. Expected arrival in 10 minutes. Current Nexophelid activity rating. Green. Safe for civilian observation. Sarah smiled, remembering how controversial the tourism proposal had been just a few months ago. Now beings from across the galaxy paid premium credits to safely observe the same creatures they once fled from in terror. The observation posts, designed to be completely unobtrusive to Nexophelid sensibilities, had become the most sought-after destination in this sector of space. Behavioral Study Update, her tablet chimed. Nexophelid raids on colonial outposts down 98% since sanctuary implementation. Population numbers stabilizing. All observed hunting patterns remaining within designated zones. A soft chime announced the arrival of the Council's quarterly inspection team. The Lumini representatives' crystalline form glowed with approval patterns as they reviewed the latest data. Even the security chief, traditionally the most skeptical of the project, showed positive color shifts in their scales. The success of this program exceeds all projected outcomes, the Council's AI noted. Request. Dr. Chen to oversee implementation of similar sanctuaries in sectors 4 through 7. Sarah watched as Atlas demonstrated a hunting technique to his cubs, herding space-dwelling creatures with the same precise movements she'd seen tigers use to teach their young. The massive predator paused in his lesson to perform a slow blink toward the observation dome, a gesture of trust that still amazed visiting dignitaries. The most remarkable aspect, the Lumini representative observed, is not just the Nexophilid's adaptation to the sanctuaries, but the galaxy's adaptation to them. These creatures have gone from being termed space monsters to being recognized as essential parts of our cosmic ecosystem. Magnus stretched and padded over to the window, watching as one of Atlas's cubs attempted to pounce on a passing asteroid, missing spectacularly and tumbling through space in a display of adolescent awkwardness that drew chuckles from the observation team. The sight of Earth's apex predator calmly observing his massive spacefaring cousins had become a symbol of the project's success. We've received applications from 57 human big cat experts volunteering for the expansion program, Sarah noted, scratching Magnus behind the ears. Turns out space zoology is becoming quite the popular field on Earth. As if to demonstrate the perfect timing that cats of all sizes seem to possess, Atlas guided his family past the observation dome in a graceful parade. Their massive forms eclipsed the stars momentarily, bioluminescent stripes pulsing in patterns that Sarah's team was only beginning to understand. The galaxy's most feared predators had become its newest diplomatic bridge, All thanks to humanity's peculiar habit of wanting to befriend the things that everyone else feared. You know, Sarah mused, watching the star-spanning family disappear into the asteroid field. Sometimes the biggest problems in the galaxy just need a little perspective. And maybe a really big ball of yarn.